Politician Mmusi Maimane says he's ready to lead the country in the right direction. The former DA leader yesterday launched his new political party, Build One South Africa. Maimane says he will contest the 2024 general elections. Let's discuss this now with political analyst David Maimela. Thank you so much for your time, David. We do appreciate it. I think the first question is whether or not this new political platform is the alternative that South Africans are looking for, given what's happening at local level, especially with service delivery.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. I think we already have a lot of political parties in South Africa. The question, however, is how effective they are, or how effective our political system is. And I'm sure you know there's a lot of debate currently in the country whether we should have sweeping, political reforms in the political front in terms of the constitution as well as the electoral system. So I have seen new political parties coming into the space. I have seen the Congress of the People. I have seen Agang. I've now seen recently Action SA, and now we've got Build One South Africa. With the exception of only one new entrant, in this instance being the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, all the other parties have really not yet shown to survive in the space, and I do think that the one reason that makes the EFF a bit appealing is, firstly, its rhetoric. I think its political rhetoric is in tune with the political conditions in South Africa. And secondly, that they appeal to the most disaffected group in our country, which is the young people who suffer all sorts of social ills. So I'm not so sure, especially because it is not yet clear as to what the new party by Mmusi Maimane is going to represent, what it stands for, what the policies are, and most importantly, what its ideological orientation is.
I want us to move into the structure of this new political, I don't know if I should call it political party or political platform, because that's what it was introduced as, but let's just say this political party. It's looking at focusing on communities and bringing in whoever wants to work with Build One South Africa, as so looking at independent candidates. Do you think that this is a way of them gaining traction for 2024 by going into communities that are in complete distress and having them say, we'll work together to sort out your problems? So essentially what I'm asking is the structure of this platform.
No, I mean, they all more or less come in the same way. I mean, if you look at the recent history, as I was saying, so before the Congress of the People was established, they went on some national consultative process, and there was no doubt to me that when Mmusi left the DA, he was going to ultimately launch a new political party or join an existing one. Well, it did not happen because many people had thought that he would join hands with Herman Mashaba, but he did not. But so the Congress of the People did the same thing. If you remember, Agang also started off as a movement, did the same thing. I'm not so sure if Action SA did not have much time to do that. But here again, Build One South Africa is also doing the same thing. So there's nothing new in terms of the establishment process, because I think what the founders of the political parties I've just mentioned now actually sought to do was a process we call in politics political legitimation, that you've got to be sort of legitimate from the ground up amongst the people. The people should know who you are and where you come from and what you're trying to do. So that process is more or less a necessary process for anyone who's trying to establish a political party. So I find nothing distinctive about that.
Do you think they will garner up the necessary support for 2024, especially having the leader being Mmusi Maimane?
Well, I often I don't do much of speculation because I think it's just simply that. But I think, like I'm saying, there are two things in South Africa. I think the political climate has reached some extremes. Whether you look at economic dynamics or you look at political dynamics. It seems to me now that the political parties that may potentially do well in the next elections are those that may adopt populist or even extreme policies. So those that could be seen to be moderate or more or less in the center might actually see their fortunes declining. In this instance, for instance, I make reference to the Economic Freedom Fighters, Freedom Front, the Freedom Front, given the message, the political message that they send all the time that their Afrikaner community is increasingly disenfranchised, citing all sorts of things such as Black economic empowerment and so on. Farm killings and all of that. So those types of extreme messages are actually playing into the political environment, which is increasingly becoming desperate. It's becoming extremely toxic as well. So those kinds of messages and rhetoric can actually resonate very well with those that are considered to be either in the margins of the political system or in the margins of the economic system. So if you're looking at sort of having a map of how certain parties may do, I would count among others the ANC, which may or may not decline below 50, depending on a few things. Like the current energy crisis could drop their support. The unemployment situation could do that. But on the other hand, if they decide to go for a credible leadership, a credible message, and so on, they can, or some radical policy shifts, they can sort of regain some ground. But if you look at the EFF has been on an upward trajectory
Yeah.
since it was formed. But when it comes to build one South Africa, I am not so sure about it. But what I've noticed is that the one South Africa message you found in the DA, you are now finding it in Build One South Africa, but you also found it in Ahang, because remember, Ahang means let's build together. So, so there's a bit of messaging and rhetoric that they have to work on.
Okay, well, we'll just have to wait and see what comes in the next couple of years and in 2024. Thank you so much for your insights. That's political analyst David Maimela.